On the Line, Chapter 2, The Hollowed Homes. An ossuary is ill-defined, possibly with purpose, as it is a box, building, or really any sort of enclosure which is designed to home and display mortal remains. Skulls once polished have settled into an amber hue from decades of torchlight baking against them. So many mismatching bones that the creature formed in your head from the composite of them all has a dozen arms and legs, stuffed alongside an outward jutting splurge of rib cages. As the darkness grows in complexity and the eye attunes to the dim space, it goes onward. The guild stand about in this dim space, their faces known to one another only by the brief illumination of a diminishing match flame. Gekomatsu takes a step back away from the little fire and embraces the darkness.
We are to go through then.
I can only imagine. This was the last item in my quest log. Burst through the door.
Bones aren't so bad. If we were to burst into a place where even the bones were being stolen, well, we'd be in real trouble.
Sonnenbloom closes her eyes and places her palms together. Her hair flickers as if motioned by an invisible wind.
I don't feel as if we're alone in this space. Something else is here.
Everyone becomes still. There is only subtle background music remaining. Soft strings set in place to not steal too much attention.
Are we all good to push into this quest, or does anyone need to log off?
She makes an effort to look at each of her allies before she finishes the statement. Khan gives a thumbs up.
I'm good.
What else would I do with my day?
Gekomatsu nods.
As if I could stop now, right before whatever this is gonna be.
Cosmo turns to look at the only hall available to them. It leads onward at a downward angle, descending further, bordered at all times by the ceaseless display of skeletal remains.
Perfect!
Sonnenbloom juts one arm upward in a sarcastic celebration. She squints at Cosmo.
Before we go too far, you need to explain what happened before we got here.
Like I said, the quest must have found me. There was an opportunity to join a shift of bankers, at a specific time, work a shift exactly as needed. I even had to do a quick time series of events so as not to spill coffee on my boss. And in the afternoon of that shift, I had an opportunity to swipe something covered in gold and jade. All I knew from there was I needed a group and to get them into this door.
Sounds like a trap.
Ilkat rolls her eyes.
Does it even need to be a trap? I mean, look at this place. It is its own whole category of concerns.
It has to be though, doesn't it? This is a shared game world. With set locations and settlements. To just give us a town or otter? Spawn one in for us? What are the chances of that?
It would not be impossible for us to discover something new. Feels as if there's still much undiscovered.
Taking the lead among the group, Khan moves ahead. He glances casually at the remains lining his path. Everyone follows a bit behind him. The hall leads through an archway into a lobby of sorts. An empty fountain covered in dust is set in the center of the room. A circular bench built in 4 quarters surrounds it. The ceiling is tall and domed, with a thin stone spike protruding straight downward from the center of it. Each wall is rigid, with shelves carved into the stonework, accentuated with depictions of everlasting knots. Across from the archway is a door, 4 times the height of any mortal. Its edges are steel, with flat sheets of the metal fortifying it across the face. A few small portions of the underlying wood remain visible.
Nobody open the door until we're all ready.
That's right. Nobody beat Leroy.
I'm surprised other players haven't found this place. Did we enter an instance when we passed that door?
Hard to imagine. Not a single other player would follow us if it was any other way.
I've tried many of the doors in this city, rolling into them, slashing them with my blade, trying to determine if there are any secret passages waiting to be discovered. No matter the angle I jumped at them, I've never found one. I believe the door opened just for us, and this dungeon, as it were, is new to the realm.
First,
Might as well write it on the wall.
Sonobloom instantly rushes up to the wall, removes a large chunk of chalk from her inventory, and signs her name in a massive font size on the ossuary wall.
Well, now I get the sense that these are your bones.
Des gestures towards the skulls.
Or you're claiming responsibility for them all.
You're a monster, Sonobloom.
you know it.
Sonobloom sparkles as her guild members tease. Her smile is bright, her cheeks sharp. A little mouse appears from within one of the skulls. It scurries over a broken jawbone and the endless osseous matter it is set upon. Then it is gone again. Brief silence takes hold.
So, the door.
Let me. I've been training infiltration for moments like this.
How did you even get that skill? I don't see it on my sheet. Adventuring, cooking, esoterica, fishing, large craft.
It isn't in the base skills. Once adventuring reaches level 500, you can unlock either archaeology or infiltration.
With a simple gesture, Gekomatsu summons a lockpick into his grasp. It's a unique tool, unlike those shown to new players as thieveries being explained in the tutorials. It features a little light focused on the lock ahead, a screwdriver, and chisel, all folded away like a modern multi-tool. He is entirely silent while he works. Everyone in the guild stands behind him, weapons drawn, with the exception of Cosmo. He quickly looks around the room, grabs a femur from the bones lining the walls, and handles it like a club.
Pretty sure you're cursed now.
Cursed with wisdom. Just think of how honored you would be if someone fought evil with your bones long after you passed on.
Des chews on the sentiment, nodding a couple of times to himself.
I retract my previous statement.
And now I have a new line item to add to my will. Don't fight with my bones.
The lock of the door snaps back.
I'm surprised this opened that easily. They buy their locks from a bargain bin at...
A censoring beep covers Des from being heard. He stares around the space, up towards the sky he cannot see, and with his expression alone, curses his corporate overlords.
Never mind. Great, and the door's open.
As he tucks the lockpick away, Gekomatsu lowers himself, crouching besides the door.
Stay behind me as we go ahead here. I can offer a passive benefit to any sneaking attempt you make.
As he finishes the sentence, a translucent purple ring grows out from him, forming a 10-foot diameter. Everyone collects themselves within the ring. Gekomatsu reaches forwards and opens the door just so there is enough of a crack for them to step through. Beyond the door is a short hall which leads to a massive empty room. The room is much like an igloo if it were lined with dank bricks from a sewer. Another domed roof, thick grout between each salmon-colored chunk in the wall. The room is too wide to see either end of it from the hall the guild stand within.
Oh, that's a boss room.
Absolutely a boss room.
The bossiest boss room that ever bossed a bossy. Yeah, we're gonna fight for our lives in there.
Tightening his grasp on the ancient bone, Cosmo nods his head and focuses ahead. The whole guild creeps further, tucked against the wall. Gekomatsu peeks around the corner, then turns back in an instant.
Yeah, that's a tricyclops.
What? Let me look.
With a nod, Gekomatsu moves back and lets her go ahead. She peeks around the corner for only a moment before returning.
That looks like a cyclops. It has one big eye.
It would.
Sorting through themselves, Everyone takes a turn looking around the corner and peering down to the far end of the room. Sitting in an oversized throne of granite is a yellowed humanoid the size of a short tower. The incredible height of the room only serves to give a short distance of leeway between the one-eyed titan and the roof. Right behind the throne is an archway leading to a tunnel, the only other way out of the room.
It's a cyclops. It only has one eye.
Gegomatsu nods patiently.
It does have one eye, but it's not a cyclops.
He's being honest. I've encountered one of them before.
Khan looks over at her.
Wait. You've encountered a cyclops before?
Yes, but this isn't a cyclops. It's a tri-cyclops.
I didn't see three eyes.
No, that's not what a tricyclops is. A tricyclops is a cyclops with 3 potential magical enchantments.
Ah, so a three-eyed cyclops would be a triclops. A tricyclops is a cyclops with 3 magical potentials.
Alright, so not to rip on etymology or anything, but are we going to fight it or what?
Dez shrugs. Sonambloom smirks. Ilkat looks around the room, then closes her eyes.
Not until we know which of the 3 variations of tricyclops it's going to be. It's either going to become invisible, become completely encased in metal, or start floating.
A loud whooshing sort of plop occurs just behind the guild. As they turn to look, the Tricyclops is there, kneeling behind them, watching. Everyone rushes into the center of the room.
We fooled ourselves! It isn't a tricyclops, a cyclops, or a triclops. It's a quadracyclops!
He draws his blade. The Quadracyclops appears on the roof, staring down at everyone. It watches, without relent. Khan peers over towards the tunnel, then back up at the roof. Nothing is there. The Quadracyclops jumps out of the floor, grasping Cosmo in one of his fists.
Unhand me! Whatever you are! We're not really certain.
Ilkat rushes towards the Quadracyclops and leaps out, her daggers poised like the fangs of a saber-toothed tiger. The Quadracyclops sinks away into the floor. Cosmo begins to fall. Ilkat quickly sheathes her blades and catches Cosmo in her hands.
Aw, my hero.
She drops him.
Ugh.
I have an idea.
She begins to run out from the far side of the room.
Wait, it's gonna try and catch you if you run!
The Quadracyclops jumps out from beneath the floor, materializing like gas into a solid. It tries to grab Sonambloom, but instead she snaps. A sudden bright light goes off in the face of the Quadracyclops. It leaps away in fear and is gone for a moment.
Be ready.
What's going on?
Gekomatsu adopts a sturdy stance. His lengthy blade is turned upwards, its tip curled out towards any oncoming opponents. The Quadracyclops drops from the ceiling, one hand covering its eye. Khan looks up and spins himself forcefully. Great sword extended, he bats the Quadracyclops across the battlefield like a ball.
Yeah! It worked that time!
Sailing with considerable speed, the swatted Quadracyclops is intercepted in the air by Gekomatsu. Within a few short frames, he pierces the eye of the Titan, pushes the full length of the blade through his target's head, and sheathes it, all before landing. Landing all of a sudden like a drop sack of spuds.
Well, now it's a no-clops.
Well, technically, it's a quadracyno.
Oh my god, can we please stop?
Everyone takes a moment to collect themselves. They look around, awaiting something more. Yet, nothing comes. They are alone in the huge, hollow space. The corpse of their foe splayed out on the ground. Ilkat produces a machete.
No point letting good material simply rot here.
Do things rot in this game?
Ilkat hacks into the corpse, retrieving what remains of the eye and an assortment of hide components. Dez looks away from the harvesting.
I can only imagine they do.
Most materials, yes. Lots of the cooking skill at lower levels is learning preserves, jams, pickled items, that sort of thing. Naval food.
With a half step and a small jump, Ilkat settles the bag on her back.
Huh? Well, I don't imagine we'll want to eat any of this, but it should come in handy if we can get out of this dungeon.
Everyone becomes silent. The large, empty room is kept from joining only by a consistent sort of wailing coming from the tunnel the Quadra-Cyclops once sat in front of.
I think it's a good sign.
How do you figure that?
Gekomatsu leaves the group and walks to the far side of the room.
Well, it is a sign. I figure a sign is better than not a sign.
With a sprint to start, Gekomatsu charges at the wall and rolls into it, thunking his body against it. As he recovers, he jumps to his feet and slashes at the wall and the surrounding area with his blade. Everyone stares.
You all right there, Gekomatsu?
Dez begins towards the throne of granite.
Yes, it appears there are no secret entrances on this side of the room.
Shame.
The guild collect themselves, grouping up at the entrance to the tunnel. It is large, enough for the Quadra-Cyclops itself to travel through it. Mostly carved from the stone with a rough edge, the tunnel leads down to a sharp corner. The wailing, fierce at times then dull at others, doesn't cease. Cosmo looks around the area, and the others each look at him. Ilkat gestures towards the tunnel.
Okay.
Cosmo waits a second, then starts down the tunnel. He doesn't stop walking and makes it to the bend in only a moment. He looks far down the tunnel. Then waves for the others to join.
Not a bad mislead.
The others reach Cosmo and peer down the length of the remaining tunnel themselves. It stretches what seems like a dozen kilometers, with an old minecart track running the full length. The track is a bit rusted, yet constructed overall with a strained pine and thick wrought iron. A set of grayed minecarts sits close to them. At the furthest end of the tunnel is a white exit where snow rushes inwards on the ushering of a blizzard breeze.
I'm checking for traps.
Me too.
Me too.
Me too.
Everyone begins an animation where they are peering through a magnifying glass, examining the length of the hall and the space around them, as well as each other, examining. Within seconds of one another, the magnifying glasses are tucked away.
It looks safe.
I concur.
I'm gonna go get food real quick while we use this minecart then.
Yup, same. Forgot to eat so far today. I'll go quick. If we get attacked, text me.
Ilkat steps into a minecart, and a little keyboard icon appears above her head.
I'm gonna make tea. See you all soon.
Her character becomes still, looking ahead and not making a sound. Ilkat pounces out of the minecart. The guild has reached a wintered-over region. Snow actively falls across the ground, with no discernible path anywhere. The tunnel opens out of a straight mountain face. The tracks end in dirt without any further construction. The trees here haven't any leaves and hold only bundles of light snow upon their branches. Far in the distance, near to the edge of what appears to be a cliffside, is a collection of haphazard buildings.
How's the tea?
She asks as she gets out of a minecart herself. Ilkat smiles at Sonnenbloom.
Good.
A little mute icon briefly appears over top of Ilkat's head.
Not spicy enough for my taste. We got this new chai. It's a bit weak. And yet, tea is tea.
I can agree to that. Often I find evening hasn't truly started until I'm making myself a cup. Though, I'll never argue if someone else does it for me.
Such is the curse of tea. It would be morally reprehensible to not offer anyone within earshot a cup of tea, if you are indeed putting on the kettle to make some anyway.
I'm glad you think so. I had a chat once with some folks down south about tea, and they started mentioning microwaves.
Ew, no, stop, oh.
Oh, sorry. I know, it's some horrifying stuff. True American crime.
The original American crime, if we're being historical about it.
Khan gets up and walks over to the group. He stares around the area.
Heyo, how's food?
Khan stares ahead. He says nothing.
That good, huh?
His character seems to smile a bit, but continues to stare onward. The women stare at him, confused expressions growing on their faces.
Ah, shit, sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute that whole time. Food was fine. Anything going on here?
They both point out in the distance to the collection of aging buildings.
Our inheritance.
Technically Cosmos, if we're being specific about it.
No need to be.
Cosmo jumps out of his minecart, still clutching the femur from earlier.
It is for the guild as far as I'm concerned. What need have I of more than one room?
Gekkomatsu appears to be in a minecart, but moments later is standing next to the guild. Remaining in the cart where he had been is now only a scarecrow of straw and canvas, with a short-rimmed hat.
What level are you, dude?
One of them. However, it might be worthwhile for me to scout ahead.
He raises up his palm, and a green light bursts from it. From the view of the other players, it is nothing but blurred and impossible to decipher light. With a few flicks, Gekkomatsu navigates a menu, and a pulse of light carries out from him again, treading ahead and towards the settlement.
No hostiles detected.
Sonobloom looks around at everyone other than Gekkomatsu.
I don't have that option. Do you have that option?
A match crackles. Smoke made opaque as a result of the cold reaches out and drifts up into the air.
I think Gecko's been around since 1.0, eh?
Gekko nods diligently.
I was an early adopter.
Everyone begins to walk towards the buildings in the distance. A forest of straight wooden lines reaches out in most every direction. The empty trees are solemn. Some seem to move or split as you blink. Some are there only for a moment, then ahead of you as you turn away.
Those are some weird, thickened trees right there, bud.
The group keeps on, the trees shifting in their lackadaisical manner. Ahead of them, a settlement becomes clearer. In total, there are 5 buildings. 3 are residential in nature, a row house sizable enough for a dozen workers, a 2-story structure of patchwork construction, and a larger home, sparing no detail or luxurious addition, for the local lord. Asides, there is a stable with a large brickwork well, and to the north, a church next to a standalone stone tower in the same sort of overdone Gothic style. A somewhat more composed footpath consisting of rows of slate set into the ground are barely discernible underneath the snow, leading between the different structures. An open patch in front of the largest home is covered in smooth, undisturbed snow. In the center of the patch, a man stands. He is dressed in the garbs of a simple farmer, threads torn at the edge of each garment. He is at rest, arms to the side, staring ahead at nothing specific.
Indeed. Is he a player NPC?
I can't select him. He should appear on the minimap at this range with some kind of icon, but nothing.
Wind blows through the area. Now standing just a distance from the invisible border of the town, it is clear that most of it sits at the edge of a cliff, overlooking nothing but a long fall and icy water. Elevated enough that you can see a distance in every direction, There appears no other way to get here outside the tunnel the guild used, hiking over top the mountains, or sailing to the cliffside and climbing directly up it. From where they stand, none of the options have seen any recent use. Everyone continues on the path, slowly yet assuredly approaching the man who stands in the snow. Sonenbloom waves out to the individual.
Hello, sir.
There is no response. He simply stands.
Maybe he's just AFK.
Cosmo begins to walk towards the individual, taking long steps in the undisturbed snow. Gekkomatsu places his hand over the handle of his weapon.
Like I said, I don't think that's a player.
Cosmo gets closer and puts his hand on the man's shoulder. Without hesitation, the man looks at Cosmo, snapping his own neck with the force of the motion. His eyes widen, burst, and then he falls to the ground and dissipates into nothingness.
Oh, good. I was worried I'd have to have a conversation with a stranger.
Quest updated.
Everyone looks at Dez.
Sorry. Sometimes the game voice just freaks me out.
It does sound pretty ominous at times.
Sonenbloom opens her menu and peruses the update.
Reclaim the lost town. Well, that's not exactly specific.
I claim this town!
Nothing happens.
It was worth a shot.
A crisp wind blows through the area. Puffs of snow rush up into the air. A few of the holes in the wall of the row house whistle.
Where first?
The church looks pretty.
Creepy pretty. Let's go there.
Ooh, the big scary church? Yeah, let's go there and ignore generations of horror film education.
With a pensive grin upon his otherwise covered face, Gekkomatsu looks out towards the church.
Where there is horror, there is experience to be gained. I say we go.
A moment passes and the group collect themselves into a tightly oriented unit. Gekkomatsu is at the front. Just behind him are Khan and Dez, followed by Sonenbloom and Cosmo, with Ilkat covering the rear.
Any of you ever play Kitty Saber Extreme?
Sonenbloom raises her eyebrows with intense curiosity.
What did you just ask us?
It's an adventure MMO, based in a fantasy feudal Japan, but everyone is a cat, and some sort of samurai or ninja.
I'll take that as a yes. Apparently it's pretty good. My sister just started playing. The ninja skills for moving around the cat city,
Los Gatos.
Los Gatos. What a name. Well, seems a neat thing is all.
The group approaches the front doors of the church. They are entirely closed.
Do you ask for any reason?
I'm just thinking about silly things, and well, the Australian animal handler tactic to dealing with horror.
Dez looks around, glaring at nothingness in the sky. Gekkomatsu raises an eyebrow but says nothing.
What are you doing?
Dodging copyright infringement claims. I hope.
He waits a moment longer, suspiciously looking around the area. Everyone stares at the door as Dez takes a step towards it.
The Australian animal handler tactic is to just dive into and start narrating whatever you're doing. No matter how horrifying, as if you're the host of an exotic animal show.
Without relent, he pushes open the doors to the church. Beyond, a long, single chapel is revealed. Pews have been set to the side. Floorboards have rot into muck. At the far end of the church is a humanoid figure, barely visible, formed mostly from racing strips of pixelated light.
More than we can handle. Broken. All broken.
Now here, we have an omen, foretelling of something awful to come.
It is coming. A shift. Something I can foresee, but you cannot. Yet I am not aware. It is underneath what I see.
Shadows begin to seep from the walls. They fill the floor. Dez takes a step back, but continues.
Now, the walls are getting nervous. When you see this, you know your scary gothic church is approaching the rutting season.
Do we fight this?
You will. You must. Alongside them all. Every single one. Battles against more than all there is. The hydrocopter, the gods and demons. You.
The roof of the church breaks in as the gargoyle from the city of Ilking crashes down through it.
Oh no, not this thing again.
The figure of light which previously stood before them dissipates into nothingness. Battle music begins to play, shifting from the somber tune of before. Gekomatsu draws the full length of his odachi and points it out with unwavering strength at the gargoyle.
We're free to engage now, are we not?
Yes, but
He reaffirms the grip on his makeshift club, then continues.
I still can't target this gargoyle. It seems like an NPC protected by the system.
Everyone adapts a combat pose, their weapons drawn. Dez's mace, when unsheathed, begins to drip with a light white smoke, as if something within the head of the weapon is smoldering. The gargoyle drops into the primary room of the church. It swipes one of its wings out at Gekomatsu. The stone-cold wing connects with the glimmering blue blade and sparks fly. Gekomatsu steps forwards and pushes back against the blow, barely deflecting the swipe. 3 balls of light form in front of Sonenbloom, and she pushes her palm out to direct them at force towards the gargoyle. Each ball of light bursts against the gargoyle's skin. A system message appears above the gargoyle's head.
Invincible target.
Not for long!
Cosmo rushes towards the gargoyle and smashes the femur in his hand down upon it. The femur snaps as soon as it connects with the gargoyle and shatters loudly into a collection of shards.
Shit.
The gargoyle, with a single swipe of his wing, sends Cosmo flying out of the church.
Okay, we need to stop fighting this thing like thugs in an action movie. Gecko, you tank. Kite this thing outside. Khan and Dez, focus on deeps. Do not draw aggro if you don't have to.
The gargoyle charges out at Khan. In a singular motion, he sheathes his weapon and rolls towards the oncoming hostile, dodging between its legs. Without pause, he continues to draw his greatsword anew, collects momentum as it moves over his shoulder, and pulls down into a strong overhead strike. No damage is dealt to the gargoyle. Gekomatsu rushes towards the monster, leaps over top of it, and quickly slashes it atop the head a multitude of times. It looks towards him and shrieks with frustration.
Come on, then!
Gekomatsu begins walking backwards out of the church.
Sonenbloom, can you heal?
Sonenbloom studies the room for a moment, then shakes her head.
No, but I can do this.
She holds her hand out towards Gekomatsu and closes her eyes. Ethereal energy forms around her, then reaches out to Gekomatsu like a thread, covering his blade in a translucent white light. The gargoyle slams both its hands down towards Gekomatsu. He pushes off the strike with his blade, and the gargoyle is pushed back a short distance as they collide. The light dissipates from the blade. Dez rushes towards the gargoyle, slides closer, and as he rises again, strikes upwards with his mace. He manages a few strikes in quick succession. Each blow causes his mace to leak with heavier and heavier smoke. Stone crumbles loudly as the gargoyle steps out of the front door, its wings and a portion of its head destroying the front entrance of the church.
Hey! I found something out here! Keep it busy!
Gekomatsu barely deflects another blow.
What is it exactly that you think I'm doing, Cosmo?
Cosmo doesn't respond. He focuses on brushing away snow in the open field with the side of his foot. The same field where the man who snapped his own neck previously stood. Quickly shifting on its heels, the gargoyle swipes around and slashes a wing out at Dez. He holds his mace to block, and just before the wing connects with him, a barrier cast by Sonnenblume buffs his defense. Dez slides back barely an inch without taking damage. His mace begins to change color, becoming a light red. Ilkat kicks the gargoyle's wrist, upsetting its balance. She rushes onward to slash and slice up and down one of its sides, dancing around one of the wings which strikes down towards her. The gargoyle spins around and whips its long, porous tail. As if impersonating a world-class limbo dancer, she falls backwards on her knees, maintaining her own body weight at a sharp angle as the whole tail sails over top of her. Out of the corner of her eye, standing atop the mountains in the distance, she spots 3 shadowed figures. Verplex shakes. Compacted snow built up on the sides and roofs of the buildings becomes loose and falls into piles.
Found it!
In the center of the field, an ivory pillar begins to rise up out of the ground. It is hexagonal in shape and completely perfect in its construction. Stemming out from it, in the shape of a complex alchemical rune, is a bright blue light. Circles overlapping circles, light in motion. The snow begins to melt, revealing a dizzying clockwork of shifting land. The pillar rises to be 10 feet tall. A loud clonk sounds as if it is locking itself in place. Gekkomatsu takes a hit and rolls nearer the pillar.
Is this going to help us?
Ilkat stabs at the gargoyle, still dealing no damage.
Hit better!
A massive shift in pressure juts out from the pillar, causing everyone, including the gargoyle, to focus on just standing upright. Winds at a level beyond the fiercest storm blow up into a globe surrounding the entire town of Verplek. The outside world becomes diluted as if it is on the other side of thick, warped glass.
I can't explain it, but I know there is something inside that pillar. Something we need.
The gargoyle opens its wings in a burst of strength, throwing itself towards Cosmo with a flying kick. Cosmo ducks behind the pillar. It takes the hit without so much as a wobble.
Ha ha! Take that, you museum exhibit!
The gargoyle climbs over top the pillar, peers down towards Cosmo, and leaps down towards him.
Run!
Sonnenblume creates a barrier over top Cosmo, preventing the gargoyle from stomping him into the ground.
Oh gosh! Overconfidence was a mistake!
He crawls out from under the barrier just before it collapses, and the full weight of the gargoyle hits the ground with a thunk. Khan looks over towards Gekkomatsu.
Big sword team up?
Never say that again. But yes.
The pair rush towards the gargoyle, their oversized blades high in the air. Each swipe at the gargoyle occupying its attention. Dez rushes up from behind the beast and strikes out at its wing. Sonnenblume looks over towards Ilkat.
We can't keep this up forever. It'll be a battle of attrition, and that's if nobody takes a hit.
You're right. You said there was something in that pillar, yeah?
Sonnenblume nods.
I just sensed something unique.
Ilkat looks over, nods a couple of times to herself, then smiles.
Alright, keep up those barriers while you can.
She dashes off towards the pillar. The gargoyle smashes Khan in the face, sending him flying. Sonnenblume conjures a barrier underneath him before he lands, breaking the fall. Gekkomatsu deflects a wing, its piercing tip like a spear.
What a battle!
Ilkat reaches the front of the pillar and peers towards it. It is detailless, like a sheer white cut out of the most perfect tusk.
Not a lot of options here.
She reaches out and presses her palm flat against the pillar.
Cool technology thing?
Another layer of energy rushes out from the pillar, knocking everyone except for Ilkat back a short distance. The gargoyle quickly recaptures its balance and lunges at Gekkomatsu. Khan swings out of the beast with the blunt side of his greatsword as Sonnenblume places a barrier across it, deflecting the gargoyle in its entirety. Before it crashes into the ground, it forces itself upright with a flick of its wings and remains in the air, peering down vengefully. Around Ilkat's hand, a tracing of light forms, then spreads across the entire pillar. Before her, a panel opens and slides away, revealing a spear of immaculate construction. It is a series of overlapping knots forged from perfect silver that collects into a trio of pointed tips. The entire weapon pulses with obvious strength, blurring the area around it. She grasps the spear, and a certainty takes over her.
Oh, yes!
The opportunity has risen.
Gekomatsu sheathes his blade and shouts out at the gargoyle.
Take an easy hit. Come and get me.
The gargoyle turns to look at Gekomatsu. The structure of its carved face churns to form a sort of smile. It gives chase. Gekomatsu leads the beast towards Ilkat. Spear in hand, poised to throw, Ilkat smiles.
To one more victory, my friends!
She steps forwards and hurls the spear ahead. Gekomatsu slides underneath the spear, allowing it to strike the oncoming gargoyle directly in the chest. Like a hall of mirrors collapsing in on itself as a series of plastic explosives detonate throughout it, a shield bursts visibly around the gargoyle.
System protections revoked.
Oh!
Get him!
Ilkat begins to charge towards the gargoyle. Gekomatsu slashes it across the face. Khan strikes at its legs. Sonobloom casts a barrier around Ilkat's daggers, and she stabs ferociously at the beast, each strike knocking it backwards like fierce, concussive blows. Cosmo runs up towards the gargoyle and leaps on its back, using all his might to hold the creature's wings back. Dez approaches from the front, slowly. He holds his now ferociously burning mace to his face and lights a smoke sitting in the corner of his mouth. With only a smirk, he takes a few quick steps, spins around, and smacks the gargoyle underneath the chin with the red-hot mace. The mace explodes and unleashes a torrent of flame onto the gargoyle, which decapitates it and sends Cosmo flying backwards. Sonobloom catches Cosmo with a quick barrier. No victory theme plays. The barrier surrounding the town of Verplek remains in place. Ilkat holds her hand out, and the spear reforms within her grasp. 3 figures stand at the edge of the barrier. One of them claps loudly.
Hey, Squared Nation, we're here, live in Sector 8791-C, and we're seeing something new in the game. Is this the expansion we've all been speculating? We see some total noobs.
The shortest of the 3 figures taps the shoulder of the man in the center.
Mute yourself when you're talking to the audience.
The man in the center nods backwards.
Alright, who are you?
She begins to walk towards the barrier, as does everyone else in the guild. The remains of the gargoyle slump into defeat. At the edge of the barrier, you can see on the other side with some clarity. The 3 of them are all dressed the same. The outfit of guildmasters adorned entirely in grey and red. Sharp hats with a pristine feather, plates of enchanted steel across the chest, spiked pauldrons and reinforced joints throughout. The guildmaster set is known for incredible stats, high defense, and being quite easy on the eyes. It can only be acquired by leaders of guilds which have reached a certain size. What few features make them distinct are height and expression. The centralmost man looks like a dick. Just the sort of person you would expect to be rude to you even if you just accidentally looked at him on the street. The shorter man who had tapped him has a fanciful mustache, large eyes, and an attentive look about him. The other is using one of the default character templates, and looks like every heroic male in a video game that has ever existed.
You don't know who we are, yet I imagine you do and just aren't admitting it. For I am Nilf Kinslayer, most miraculous leader of the Squared Knights.
Everyone looks between themselves and shrugs. Khan thinks on the name for a moment.
Oh yeah, you're one of those guilds that gets new members to spam recruitment requests in settlement centers.
And you are the undeserving, receiving the extraordinary.
So, who are these guys?
The greatest of allies. My administration's officer, Tobias Engthal.
The shorter man bows.
Greetings.
And this.
He motions towards the default-looking player.
I am one of the newest branches to emerge from within an ancient tree, its roots digging deep into the virtual planet. I am one with sound, with light, one who breaks both. I am a speedrunner.
Oh shit.
Sonenbloom leans over towards Ilkat.
What is that?
He plays video games really quickly.
I come from a family of speedrunners. I was born a man, to a child who was a man, who was my father before he was even born. By the time I met him, he had already introduced himself to me and skillfully used a frame-perfect tech to skip the cutscene. I admire him to this day.
Alright, so Nelf, Tobias.
Gekkomatsu points towards the default-looking individual.
He has no name over his head or anything.
You fool! Of course he does. You just haven't grasped the extent of his power.
What?
As I was born, my family used an exploit, so my official name is only a single use of the space key. I pursued the right to use my legal name in endless empires. I had won the case before they even understood the question.
How does that explain?
It matters not. We are the guild masters of the Square Knights. We will lay claim to this town and its secrets. You will not hold them in your low, yaveled hands.
Ilkat looks over to Khan, who shrugs at her. Everyone in the guild collectively takes a moment to look at one another and shrug, like the apathetic version of a toast. They all start to walk back towards the center of town.
Don't you walk away from us!
Let's just keep walking away from these people.
I agree. They seem unsuitable companions in our present circumstances.
Sonenbloom stops for a moment, then looks back at the barrier, then far above her head.
It's like we're in a globe of sorts.
We're kinda always in a sort of globe, aren't we?
A smaller globe, then.
I think we should set up a base of operations if we're going to be here. Clear some of these other houses. Because who knows how long this campaign's going to be.
Khan looks out the still gargoyle corpse nearby them.
You figure it is a campaign?
It ought to be, isn't it? I mean, omens, reoccurring bosses, and now these folks are here? Maybe they got a brand new quest that has them acting as the antagonist to our story.
Cosmos stretches.
I don't think you need to worry. If they could get in, they probably would have already. I don't get the feeling any of these folks will spare our feelings given the opportunity.
In which case...
Ilkat points out to the largest of the manors.
Let's take that one.
End of Chapter 2.
Hey, this is Space from On the Line. Do you want to help us speedrun the series? Become a patron and support the show. You can check us out at joshperry.ca/ontheline or patreon.com/on_the_line. I should find a way to speedrun saying that. Have a good one, folks.